Welcome to another episode of Everything Intellectual Property. Today, we have a very special guest with us. This gentleman has invented a new way to open and close pill bottles using only one hand. Please help me welcome the CEO and the founder of SnapSlide, Rocky Batzel.
Hey,
how's it going, Rocky?
Hey, pretty good, man. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you giving me some time today to kind of talk through your story here, and just kind of this is going to be a good one. Just as I was preparing for this thing and taking in all the information of kind of your steps in the journey and preparing for this thing, this is going to be a cool one. I guess I wanted to see first, what I typically like to do is have the guests just kind of describing. It looks like maybe you had a bottle there. If you could kind of describe what your invention consists of, just so the audience can get a kind of better understanding of what's going on.
Yeah, for sure. So I was a medical student, right? A year through medical school, my heart wasn't in it anymore. So
it only took a year, huh?
Yep, I did 1 year, and after that first year, I just wasn't feeling it. I was being driven somewhere else, and it was a tough decision. A lot of people thought I was nuts. You know, what are you doing, Rock? Leaving med school. Like, you know, if your heart's not in, son, you just gotta take the plunge. I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do, you know, so I left and started. I knew something entrepreneurial, wanted to get into it. Did a couple things. I always had that in mind. I was always trying to solve problems. Yeah. So I started tinkering, doing stuff. And one day, my mother came to me and was like, Rock, you want to think of something for these pill bottles. I'm like, what do you mean, Ma? She's like, Graham can't open them. She can't open the pill bottles. She's got like 6 of them. She can't open any of them. I'm like, interesting. She's like, yeah, I have to go over every day for a couple times a week, open them for her, and then she just leaves a cap on them.
Yeah.
And then she knocks them over. The pills go all over the place. And grandkids come over. She gets paranoid. She puts them back on. And the whole process starts all over again. I'm like, that's interesting. And I started with research. I'm a big research guy. I love to dig into the research.
Nice.
And I started, and they haven't changed. Child-resistant closures on medication factors haven't really changed much in over 50 years.
Really?
Really, man. Like, everything's changed. In the 21st century, we have, phones change, cars change, everything evolves, but we've been using the same mechanical operation on child-resistant closures for 50 years now. And I thought that was pretty interesting. I'm like, here's an area that if you could, let's think of a mechanical operation that's very simple, because the volume's crazy. It's not a consumer product.
Yeah.
You know, there's 4 billion prescription vials in the U.S.
That's crazy.
That's a lot of volume. So it can't be complex. You can't make it fancy and, really techy, because then it'll never be able to get scaled and it'll just price yourself out. So now in my mind, I'm on closures. Probably, how many people are thinking about closures, right? So during this time, I'm like, it needs to have less force and dexterity, so people with arthritis and limited strength could access it.
Right.
And I walked in a wine and spirits store, which is our Pennsylvania's local liquor stores. And I saw a lady in there. She was handing out wine. She was doing wine sampling, and she was an amputee.
Okay.
And it just caught my attention. I'm like, oh, what's this amputee? How does she open bottles? So I had my eye on her, and instead of going to the bourbon aisle, which I usually go to, I went to the fruity drink aisle, right? Just so I can keep an eye on her.
For sure.
With what I'm getting, I need to see how this lady opened something. And she went to open a bottle, and she had her technique, but it was cumbersome. She had to put it under her armpit, open, figure it out, and it was just like, there has to be something better.
Right.
Like this, whatever I come up with has to have one arm access. I added that to the list. And I just started thinking, and that kind of got me to think a little differently, to get away from torque and things that close, like a push and turn. And that got me thinking a little different. I think that helped me kind of expand out the creative part of the brain, wherever that comes from, to think outside the box. And I just came up with a very simple mechanical operation. And instead of requiring torque to open something, it's a linear action instead of turning. So you need 2 parts for child resistance. You need a 2-part mechanism. like a push and turn or squeeze and turn.
Yep.
So I knew I needed that. So what I invented was just kind of like, if you think of a Tic Tac container, that's on a hinge, but
Yep.
you slide it. Instead of turning, you slide it open. You take it, you press the button area, and you got to access it to the point in which you slide it open.
Mm-hmm.
And
Nice.
requiring significantly less force and dexterity, and allows you to open it with one hand.
No, and that's first off pretty cool. And I guess I was maybe getting, as I get vitamins, and if I have a headache and I get maybe some headache medicine, some Tylenol or whatever the case may be, even for me in his 30s, it could be a pain trying to kind of get, like you said, applying the torque, pushing down, or however that kind of what is it? What did you call it? Two-phase resistance or whatnot? Two-part. Yeah, exactly. That can be a pain for somebody that's, I guess, in his prime, so to speak.
No doubt.
Not to mention somebody who's, like you said, as you get older and you get out of your prime, not as strong or whatever the case may be. I can only imagine the difficulty trying to open up those bottles at that point, because it's a lot of times it's a pain. And I think I heard you maybe talking on a prior interview, like with the threading and how that doesn't match up. And a lot of times I have to kind of force it down. It's like a real pain. And it's interesting, like you said, 50 years and you have the Tic Tac on the hinge. And it's interesting that nobody had thought of like the slide, the snap and slide up until this point in time.
Yep. It's not something that has been evolved, like the packaging industry and like what I'm doing now. It's tough. It's disrupting an entire way of doing things.
Yep.
I'm disrupting this status quo that they've had, and they just haven't been looking at the consumer side of things and been doing their thing, selling their bottles, selling their closures, and, not looking at the consumer and saying how you could make something better, because it's not a consumer product. Although it's one of the most widely used things that consumers use. Everybody uses whether a child-resistant closure, whether it's a prescription bottle or, like you said, your vitamins. Something that everybody uses every day. So why not make it better?
Well, for sure. No, absolutely. And I actually like the idea of just, kind of had me thinking as I was looking at this, as far as just those type of devices or contraptions that you can use just with one hand. That seems to be just, like you said, whether there's an amputee or someone that gets older or not, they don't have this much strength. Seems like that's maybe an interesting way to go, just kind of maybe across the board. But I guess let me ask you this, because you talked about how after a year in medical school, you was ready to kind of be done with it. So did kind of the stars align with, okay, your mom bringing you this issue at the time you were kind of ready to get out of medical school, or did kind of one happen before the other?
I left medical school, and right after that, I wanted to get out and do something. Right after that, my mom came to me. Shortly after. And I think medical school, like knowing science, knowing like the anatomical and physiological abilities of the muscles in the hands, the joints, having an understanding of them probably helped stimulate the idea, knowing that less muscle movement, less joints involved, these little anatomical things that make a big difference.
Well, for sure.
So I think it did help.
No, and I was going to ask you, so then, okay, medical school or just kind of school in general and kind of maybe the corporate side of things, that's one thing, but I'm pretty sure, as you have found out, just the whole entrepreneurship is a different kind of monster in and of itself. Was it some reservations, or maybe did you have some experiences just even being an entrepreneur? I know we'll talk about, like you said, disrupting the industry and having to kind of navigate those waters, but just in terms of like, okay, I'm an entrepreneur, was that something that you had experience with before, or this was something that you was kind of jumping into fresh or new?
I was jumping into it fresh and new. I mean, I had experience when I was a kid. I'd go around the neighborhood plowing driveways with my quad. I'd collect golf balls and sell them at school, like little stuff like that.
Right.
So I always kind of had that, I guess. But this was my first, doing it. I wasn't a guy, I didn't want the 9 to 5, punching the clock. You wanted to do something and make a difference, and kind of go my own route, get my own way. And it's not not easy. Let me tell you, it's a grind, man. It's a grind, and you just jump into it and passionate about it. Just never give up. That's the key. You could know all this stuff. You could have all the education in the world, have all the connections, even all the money. But the key is never give up.
I like that.
Be on a mission.
I like. So then, in terms of like the disruption of the industry, I guess, how did you approach that? And I would imagine that you're probably still, to some degree or another, kind of fighting through that as far as, the hurdles of kind of bringing this concept or this invention to an industry that's been doing it with the torque for so long. Can you kind of talk about that process a little bit and kind of how you had to kind of navigate those waters with kind of just trying to overcome the way things were done and people just being complacent about, let's not do it? Because, again, from my understanding and doing some research, it was a lot of people, experts included, engineers, things like that, that told you you're wasting your time. It's not going to change. It's not going to work. That's crazy to think. Even like patent attorneys telling you, from my understanding, hey, this thing is not going to be patentable, which is crazy. Because as a patent attorney, I'll never tell us, even though I think or have a good inclination that something is not patentable, unless I can kind of show them why. I don't say, hey, this is not patentable, unless it's like, okay, it's a concept that is generally known. But if I don't have some type of art that I can point to them or put forth and say, hey, this is already done, I'm not going to tell somebody that this is not patentable, because a lot of people, when you, like you said, was able to just not necessarily listen to them, but a lot of people would kind of turn it back around and don't do anything as a result of getting that expert opinion.
Yep. So, hit nail on the head. Since day one, since I had the idea, it's been resistance, every step of the way. Started once you had an idea, trying to just get it on paper. That was a challenge. I had to get this. I'm not a great artist. I'm not great at drawing. So just getting it on paper, was a challenge. I used to teach medical at a local tech school to pay the bills as I was doing this stuff, and one of my students was a good artist, and trying to get her, have her come after class, extra credit to help me draw this thing that's in my head that I need to get it down on paper. And just that was tough. Like, it's got to do this, it does this. Like, try to explain something to somebody that there's no reference to it. It's tough. And at this point, I didn't know anything about patents yet. I just knew I needed to get something on paper.
Right.
I remember getting this low melt plastic ordered from Amazon. I'm sitting in the kitchen with boiling water and a hairdryer, trying to get this stuff malleable so I could mold it into like what is SnapSlide, what's in my head. And
right.
I still have this prototype. It looks like complete crap, but it got the point across. It still worked, and I was able to get it. He was able to take that and draw it out. And once I had it on paper, then I did like research on writing claims and the specifications of an application.
So you did everything yourself as opposed to going to an attorney, at least early on? Or?
Yep, early on. And then I had this because I wanted to get it to the attorney so we could at least look at. And I went to two attorneys, one locally and one somewhere else, and they both told me the same thing. They're like, "Right, good idea, but it's so simple that it has to be out there. And if something so simple like this, you can't make it any more complex than add a claim here. You're going to be dead in the water. It's not going to." That was discouraging. I was like, really? I did.
But they didn't even say, let's do a search or anything. Because typically I'll say, let's do a patentability search. I don't see anything out there. I'm not thinking maybe it's new, but let's do a search just to see, because that's different in terms of, like you said, the torque as opposed to the snap and slide. It's a different feature, regardless of how simple it is. So that's interesting that they didn't say that. I'm not cutting you off, but that's crazy that they didn't say, hey, let's at least do a search.
Yep, I agree. I think the simplicity of it just like shocked them. They were like, no, it can't be. And like, I'm a young guy going, they're like, is this guy going to be able for me? If this guy, this guy doesn't know what he's in for, and this is probably not going to be patented anyway, so I just want him gone away.
Right.
I don't know what the mindset was, but twice. So it was discouraging. I was like, oh, God. And I finally found a patent attorney up in Rhode Island. Good guy. And he was an older guy, real seasoned. And he told me the same thing, but he's like, this is simple. We're going to want to get a prior art search.
That's exactly that's the first thing, regardless of how simple I thought it was. I would have recommended, let's do a search first.
Yep. That's what he said. And he's like, I think it cost me at the time $600.
Okay. And that's actually a pretty good search, because I'll typically say, hey, $1,500 is probably what you want to spend. I'm not sure if he maybe did some type of a discount or whatever, but $600, that's pretty, that's a pretty inexpensive search. So that's like maybe a couple hours. So you're not doing too much, but that's, you had a good deal, $600.
I got the sense that we hit it off. He was a good guy, and knew I was passionate about it. And, maybe he gave me, maybe helped me out a little bit on it. Yeah. But I remember, I thought it was like $600, because I remember if I went over $1,000, because I was young at the time, I was broke, it would have been a problem. It would have been like, a problem. So,
yeah, for sure.
So I think 600 was the number, if I remember correctly. And we did it. And he came back. It was maybe a couple of weeks. We did international, domestic, the works.
Yeah.
And he came back saying, Rock,
you got something.
You got something, man. There's limited prior art. We're talking about like best patent office. Now, they're always going to come back with something.
Yeah, I mean, again, yep, you're exactly right about that, and I'm glad you brought it up, because even though how BS it is, they're going to reject it, and they're going to have some crazy reason. But once you start talking through things with them,
that's their job. They don't want to accept anything. So, but the prior art was, we're talking about like dresser drawers. That's
right
out. Yeah, like
so. This is not even in the same. This is a whole different industry.
Yeah, man. It wasn't, nothing in packaging. Yeah. No packaging whatsoever, prior arts. Like, they were coming back with, like, dresser drawers, like, storage containers, Tupperware stuff. Like, I was like, all right, so we're on to something here. Yep. And then that started the patent process, and which is intense. I wrote a lot of it. Got some help. My uncle's a chemist. He's a chemist. PhD chemistry, so he knows a little bit about patents. He helped me a lot with it, and with him, me, and the patent attorney, we just plugged away. We wrote this huge application with like 40 claims. Like, it was.
You were trying to save money with 20 more claims than what you're allowed. That's gonna.
We had to pay. We had to pay for more claims. I remember that being the patent. We were like, well, these are. You gotta pay for more claims. Like, what? So we inundated the office. We put it in. We knew we were gonna get something back, but now we got that. Once you submit, you got that 18 months or so until there's even an office action on it.
Yep.
You get your priority date, but now it's a waiting game.
Definitely a waiting game.
You could just say, patent pending. You're out there. Don't wait. That's the first thing you have to do, protect your idea, whether it's the patent attorney, get it out there and actually get the utility, or even a provisional patent, or what's a provisional patent now for a micro entity, like $100, $110?
It's cheap, and to be honest with you, I guess this got to get off into the weeds or a separate story. I typically I know the large entity is obviously, if you're Apple, Microsoft, one of those things. I typically like to do the small entities, but you can do the micros, which is even cheaper. It can be kind of burdensome, if you will, because you got to really kind of make sure that that person is keeping their micro entity status. And, obviously, I think you have to be 500 employees or less to be considered small, and you're most likely not going to go from small to large in any time soon, if at all. But it doesn't take much to go from micro entity to small entity. And the fact that if you don't kind of update your things, even though you went from micro entity to small entity, that can kind of really affect the patent. So I kind of, me personally, I know people do it to go to micro, but it can kind of be a burden in terms of making sure you're keeping that status. Because like I said, if you don't keep the status, or if you don't make sure you are, you're you qualify for the status, and therefore it's kind of given to you properly. That, like I said, that can affect things later down the line as relates to the patent. So just to kind of avoid that, I was like a small, but yeah, it can't be more than a couple $100 for a micro entity, for a provisional application for sure.
Yep. Good. When you're starting, that's good to know. Yeah.
So then I was going to ask you. So you pretty much wrote a lot of this, you and your family member, and then did the patent attorney at that point? Did he just kind of go through it? Because obviously as an attorney, I would. And again, maybe it's a provisional application is okay. Now, when it was time to convert it, because I'm assuming that you converted it to a non-provisional within a year, or utility application within a year, did he kind of really go back through with the attorney and kind of spruce it up, or how did that work out?
During that time, we did it. We went through. I remember I filled out just a provisional application and did it myself.
Yeah.
And then once we found the patent attorney, we started and we went guns blazing. So once we did it, we got it to the attorney. We were working hand in hand with him to review everything, and I had a meeting with him all the time. Okay, we'll use this language, because you need the patent attorney. I could write up and describe everything, but the language and how to work, you need that expertise.
For sure. Yep. I have engineers who are reading this thing like, man, I don't understand you guys' language. The drawings look good. That looks like it's accurate, so I'm good with it.
Yep. And how to explain out the specifications and take the figures, which is a whole nother thing, finding a drafts person to draw the figures, so, and then labeling all the figures and putting them in the numbers. It's a process that you need expertise on to get it done right.
And it's interesting, and I think you have the 3 awarded patents. I know you have I'm not sure if the Chinese patent has been issued yet or if that's kind of still pending, but I know you have the 3 utility patents, which it seems like you have the plaques in the background.
Yep. I have 3 up here now. I actually have 8 now.
Really?
Yeah, I have 8 patents now. I didn't load up my board yet. I only have 3.
And this is all on the bottle, the pill bottle with the snap and slide?
Yep. Continuations in part, and then other. Crazy, because we're building kind of like our little real estate within the patent.
This stuff is valuable. This stuff is valuable. You have a design patent. So let me ask you this. You said you converted this thing from a provisional to a non-provisional. And the reason I'm asking this question is because it comes up a lot. Obviously, the provisional application, it doesn't have to be in a formal requirements with the patent office, as well as it's a lot cheaper option. But a lot of people don't convert those because maybe things didn't pick up, they couldn't get funding, one reason or another. What was that deciding factor to say, okay, yep, I have something, let's go ahead and convert it? And I guess on the flip side, what would have happened for you to maybe not convert the provisional to a non-provisional?
It was the prior art search that came back.
So you did the provisional before the prior art search?
Yeah, my provisional was not, I didn't even do the right draft figures. I remember I didn't even know, I took, that girl drew it. I just used her drawing, and I laid it in, scanned it. My provisional was not legit. Legit patent.
But again, for a provisional, it doesn't have. It can be on a napkin, and you can turn that in, and that can be okay. But when you got to go to convert it, it has to be in kind of black and white line drawings. Things have to be a lot more neat and kind of, I guess, pretty looking for the patent office. But that's cool. So it was the fact that the prior art search came back. It was good. So it was like, okay, let's convert this thing.
Yep. So that was the first thing I actually did. I missed that part. After I did my own research and figured out that it wasn't, that I couldn't find it. And, you go to the USPTO, you do your search, Google patents, and just typing in keywords in Google and going through hundreds of pages of images. If it's not there at that point, it's probably not out there in the market. And then you're just looking for prior art in the patent USPTO site, to see if something was invented but not commercialized.
Right.
And you do your best there. And if it's not, you're not seeing it, do it. Do the provisional, and then the attorneys turned me down twice, and then prior art. I finally got an attorney to do a prior art search, and that was nothing. So we're like, let's go.
That's crazy that you could get an attorney to at least do the prior art search.
They just wanted me off there.
Yeah, I guess so. But that's crazy. So then I guess let me ask you this, because you have the Chinese patent, and a lot of people, like you said, the pill bottles. This what 4 billion pill containers or prescription containers, and obviously that's not just here in the U.S. You have that abroad as well. Because what was that mindset to say, okay, I'm gonna go into this country or that country? I know a lot of people typically go file for patent protection in the country that they're, obviously the U.S., but outside of the U.S., country that they're selling it in, the country that they're maybe manufacturing it in. What was kind of your mindset to say, I'm going to, I guess, these other countries outside the U.S. with trying to get patent protection on your product?
That was a tough one, especially early on. I did do a PCT application when filing that U.S. utility, and we knew we had some time. It cost a couple more bucks to do it, but I had time to figure out if we wanted to pursue it until office action started.
Yeah.
And that's when the patent attorney did say, like, okay, there's going to be money. You pay this now, but like the prosecution is when it really starts to add up, and forget about it when it's the PCT, because that's what needs to change with the patents, the PCT application especially. You got to all come together and figure out a way to do this, that not every single country has their own, it's the same process every single time.
Yep.
But it's a whole, and it's a lot of dough. It's tough for like an independent inventor to really themselves.
It can start get costly, because now we here in the U.S., we have to work with foreign associates, whether that's in China or India or Japan or in Europe, and because we kind of have a good idea about the patent laws, but they are experts just as much as we are experts in the U.S. patent laws. So they're just you're paying multiple attorneys and intellectual property fee, office fees. So it could definitely add up, as you talked about.
Back in the day, before like the internet, it was, you could patent something here in the U.S. and there's no way they could find it in China unless they go actually hardcover USPTO books. I don't even know what kind of search engines they even had. It'd have to be something hard copy.
Yep.
Nowadays, with the internet, you could find anything, and and it's makes it easier for the knockoff artists, but harder for the inventors to protect their stuff.
And that's a good point that you brought on. And I've had a number of guests say that, and that's one of the things with the patent laws. And I do think at some point they will get it right, because it's not really, to be honest with you, the patent laws that's currently constructed are not really helpful for like e-commerce. And I know yours is not necessarily e-commerce related, but if you were kind of selling something on an online platform, whether it's Amazon or maybe your platform, and like you said, it's easier for the knockoffs. To the extent that you kind of file a lawsuit against the knockoffs, it can be very expensive and a very kind of time consuming to try to get them to kind of not sell their product. So they kind of need to expedite or change the law so that it's kind of an expedited process for the e-commerce platforms to kind of get these knockoffs taken down or whatever the case may be. I know Amazon does a little bit better job with their Apex program, but just generally speaking, the patent laws of e-commerce haven't kind of aligned or caught up with each other yet, at least not only in my opinion as a patent attorney, but a lot of other like inventors and business owners, their opinion. I know it seems like you maybe don't have to deal as much with that because seems like more so B2B with kind of wholesalers and, pharmacists or pharmacies or whatever the case may be. But have you had to maybe deal with that? I know kind of just being early on in the process, have you had to worry about that problem of knockoffs yet? Because it seems like once you're successful, then everybody it's almost like it's going to come sooner or later once you're successful and you're successfully been able to sell the product.
It's gonna come. The knockoffs are probably gonna happen. It's kind of a rite of passage, if you will.
Right.
No inventor wants to hear it. No inventor wants it. It's one of the biggest fears.
Yeah.
Who's going to knock me off? But I kind of try to get this feeling of like imitation is the best form of flattery.
There you go.
And pick and choose your battles accordingly. Do all you can in the patent realm, protect it, U.S., domestically and internationally.
Yeah.
Do that. Establish a brand. Build that brand. Try to build that brand status around it. So when the knockoffs do come, fighting a trademark is much easier than, a lot of time the IP. So And usually the big companies, the worthy customers, are going to want the real thing and not screw around with knockoffs. So, and on that, form alliances, overseas.
I like that.
Licensing deals, international licensing deals. Like, no matter what, we could have all the money and all the know your stuff so well. But I mean, if you're fighting Europe, a country in Europe that's knocking you off, or China, or you name it, us being here in America, we don't know their laws as well.
Right.
You don't have the connections, even if you don't even speak the language, even if you have somebody, so partner with like businesses that are there.
Yep.
That
I like that.
have a vested interest to do it. And, if you choose the battles accordingly.
No, I like that. So I wanted to ask you this as far as, because from my understanding, you had maybe a licensing deal at one point, but it seems like things were moving slow. So once that kind of expired, you kind of really took things into your own hands. Can you maybe kind of talk about that part of it a little bit?
Yep. So after I got the patent out, now it's time to prove that it's like make a prototype.
Right.
That was another thing. So I got through the patent stuff. The naysayers, I'm like, okay, we could get a patent. Or at least we don't know if we could get it, but we could get it filed, and it doesn't look like there's any prior art. And then it started with the engineering. It can't be, this will never be molded. You can't mold this. It's too complicated to mold. It's not manufacturable. It'll never operate the way you want it to. I have people telling me it could never click, snap, the snap in SnapSlide. When I was developing this, that was important to me because during my research, a lot of people don't, like kids especially, they don't get into the medication bottle because they get through the child-resistant closure a lot of the time. It's because you don't properly put the closure back on, and now the kids could just get into it as if there is no child-resistant closure.
Right.
So I wanted an auditory stimuli, an auditory assurance that it's closed. So that snap sound, when you close it, it's an important feature, And like, what do you mean it can't snap? Well, the 3D print snaps because it's a harder material, but polypropylene and injection molded plastic, softer, it'll never snap. I'm thinking of something like doesn't make any sense. But you're just potential energy converted into kinetic. It got to produce something, I'm like, I think it could. I gotta test it. I'm not like a guy. I don't like take what people say like seriously unless it's backed with like legit logic that I can wrap my head around. If it's just a subjective opinion that it can't do this, I have to test it. I have to see. I have to find for myself.
Right.
Because it's an invention, and just the sheer nature of invention is that it's never been done before. So you can't tell me that it can't be done.
Right.
I can't tell you that it can be done, but you can't tell me that it can't be. So we gotta prove it.
But as you kind of pointed out, and sorry to interrupt there, but as you pointed out, man, we put people on the moon. We kind of did all these great things, and all of a sudden you're saying that we can't get this simple idea that all you guys are talking about is simple. We can't mold this thing?
Dude, that's exactly what I was thinking of myself when I was talking to you. Like, what do you mean? Like, mankind, you put a man on the moon. Well, you can't put two pieces of plastic together and like do this? This isn't splitting the atom. I mean, we've done some remarkable things as humans. I mean, it's amazing, but it's all resistance. Whether it's like NIH syndrome, not invented here, which is a big thing. Somebody sees something, they should have done it, especially if you're in the industry. And they resist it. There's a lot of, especially in the packaging world, these companies out of probation killed by a lot of vested interests. There's a lot of doing the status quo for so long, so they don't want change. So they'll tell you everything to help you disappear.
So, and I would call that like the maybe the subconscious kind of resistance. But what was did you feel that you had maybe conscious resistance where people like, hey, we can't get this out, or we have to kind of try to shelve this thing, and therefore let's put up all these barriers. Did you kind of feel like that at any point?
Yes, that was one of the things that I thought why they were resistant, that they don't want to change from what they're doing.
Yep.
And then once we started, and then I finally did eventually prove moldability, which was another story in itself. this whole thing's a journey. But so once I finally did prove moldability and it's able to click our first prototypes off the mold, they were far from perfect. But they proved it worked.
Right.
Just gotta keep going, iterations.
Yeah.
I started to get traction. I was able to, I got some offers from companies. We got one offer to buy me out.
Really?
Yep. Buy me out, lock, stock, and barrel. I'm like, what about like the royalty back end deal? Like, where's the back end? I appreciate the offer, but what happens if this does take off, like I think, and it's huge, and I'm stuck with, I don't want to be that inventor that sold out early, and, it does blow up, and you didn't really get much. You didn't get what
right.
You needed, No, they didn't want to give me anything, so I respectfully declined, and that allowed me to raise some capital to actually pursue the development and kind of increase that it's just not me anymore. Get a good team, get some people, get a team, because you need people, man. Like you do what you do well, you got to get others that do what they do well.
For sure. Absolutely. I agree with that.
Like a football team, you could have the greatest quarterback or running back in the world, but you're nothing without the offensive line. So like, you gotta have those people, and slowly building that team. And we got to a point that we actually got 2 licensing deals throughout our journey at 2 different times. Good manufacturers, good size, and they all want exclusivity. So the first one, I went a little longer than I should have. About 18 months of exclusivity, locked it down for 18 months. They were paying me during this time, and toured about halfway through. I'm like, what's going on? I wanted to move. I'm gonna move.
Like, for sure.
Like, let's start getting some customers. Let's start, what's going on?
Where's the motion?
Yeah, where's the motion? I appreciate, your licensing it. I know you're paying me, but, I mean, that's not, I want to go,
right.
And I just got the suspicion that they didn't want to. They did bottles, and they just got this, they're not moving like the way I want to move, and I still had a lot of time in this contract left, so I just had to buy my time. Towards the end, they wanted to renew for longer. I said, no bueno, moving on. Left. A lot of people there think I'm crazy as well doing that, like, oh, rock, what? Nope, it wasn't there. So, and then got another one, and this time I learned a little bit short-term exclusive, because they're all going to want exclusivity.
Yeah.
Keep it short until they're the right partner. And then
I like that.
You would draw it out. So do a pre-commercialization licensing deal. And I have 6 months. And you're evaluating SnapSlide, you're doing your thing, but we're also evaluating you.
You're right, for sure.
And I think a lot of inventors are don't want to think that you're evaluating the company, they're the big company, but you gotta be evaluating them, because if they don't do their job, or if the deal's not right, it's not going to be good. Right. So after about a couple months into that deal, they wanted to do a longer term deal again, and this time I think they wanted to go. I think they actually did, but the deal wasn't good. This time the deal wasn't good. They wanted exclusivity for a long time. Royalty structure didn't make sense. There's a lot of things in there that wasn't working.
Okay.
Yep. So that time it was the deal. I think they were just trying to take advantage.
Unfortunately.
Yep. Unfortunately. And they were good guys. I liked them, but just once again, it wasn't. Your gut tells you it's not a big deal. You just gotta walk. You gotta know when to walk.
For sure.
Go back to the drawing board. And then after that time, I was like, all right, no more licensing. There'll be a time for licensing later, but we could do it ourselves.
Yeah. Yep.
Learn a tremendous amount. We developing, perfecting the technology, building up the patent estate, market research. doing all these consumer tests. We're fighting about 12 million people out there that only have one arm. You know, whether, 12 million. I mean, amputees, but hemiparesis. 80% of stroke patients, you have a stroke.
That's true.
Some form of hemiparesis, which is paralysis to some degree on one side of the body. Millions of people there. Neuromuscular conditions, brachial plexus injuries, spinal cord injuries that leave your arm paralyzed. So many people. Like, there's a lot of people out there that can't access meds. And then you have two hands. Arthritis, 60 million. Parkinson's disease. You know, just the more research we're able to inquire, the more experts within those individual arenas, the stroke association, the amputation associations, you know, that know the data. You know, we're starting to contact them, getting insight, knowing that we're onto something here that's been overlooked for forever.
Well, and I was going to say that's interesting. So then once you, I guess, took kind of the rights to the IP back, to the patents back, and said, hey, I'm going to do this myself. And I'm assuming, like you said, you're getting all this additional information from experts on the amputees and arthritis and Parkinson and all that stuff. And I'm assuming that you're reaching out to the pharmacists and kind of pharmacies and kind of different people that actually, you know, try to get his deals here. Or did they provide any kind of reservations, or were they on board, or was it any hurdles that you kind of had to prove to them on your product? Because kind of looking at it, it's like, man, this is a no-brainer, but it seems like kind of throughout the process, you've had to convince people otherwise. So was that the same with, I guess, present day, having to kind of go to pharmacies and different people who you're trying to essentially do business with and get to actually purchase your product? Did it take some convincing, or did they kind of see it like the same way you had the aha moment? Did they get that aha moment when you explained to them what you have?
Yep. They started to see, you know, and now it comes down to, okay, since you're doing it yourself, it's now you need a manufacturing partner.
Right. That
was more like not licensing. It was depending on the manufacturer to do everything, know everything. You need to start learning. You need to know that side of things.
Right, especially with the volume, I would imagine that's a big side, especially with all the volume that they're doing.
Yeah, very capital intensive. You can't start out small because the price points are so small. The volumes are high and the price points are really low. So you need multiple cavitation molds, like 32 cavity injection molds that, like our cycle time.
Yep.
It's so simple, our cycle time, in which how long does it take you to produce a unit? And we have a 10-second cycle time in that range. So every single time the mold closes 10 seconds, it produces a unit. Now, you can't be doing one cavity. You can't do one part. We need 32 cavities. It needs to be 32 to 64 parts for every 10 seconds to be able to hit that volume and price. You know, so that's what we're working on now, ramping that production up to huge cavities to be able to meet the demand at the price point for pharmacies and wholesalers.
Now this is interesting because I'm not sure if you can see here the background. I went to Michigan State both for undergrad as well as law school. But from what I understand, Michigan State has one of the best packaging, I guess, educations or schools in the country. Did you kind of cross paths with anyone from MSU on their packaging along this journey, or not so much?
Not so much. I heard about MSU a little while back, and they do have one of the best packaging schools. I met a couple people from MSU packaging, but not a whole lot.
Okay, gotcha.
I've always been on my I gotta talk to the packaging school there.
No, for sure. And as I was kind of coming up in mechanical engineering it was always talked about that the packaging program was one of the best in the country. So with this kind of device kind of crossing over into that packaging side of things, it was interesting whether or not you came across paths with kind of my old stomping grounds there in East Lansing.
I met a couple people. I was at a American conference in D.C. Okay. Met a couple people from Michigan State packaging school there. Smart people.
Yeah, no, for sure. Oh yeah, I mean, it has to be doing something right to kind of get those accolades as being one of the best in the country and something.
No doubt.
For sure, especially, packaging is an important thing here. I guess I typically like to ask about, like, maybe the breakthroughs. What would you say was maybe one of your biggest breakthroughs with kind of going through this process and the product and kind of where you are today? What would you say was probably one of your kind of biggest breakthrough moments as you look back on things?
I could probably pick a couple.
Okay.
Like getting that prior art search back. That was a breakthrough.
That sounds like
You
that was
know,
a big breakthrough.
Proving that it could be molded. Big breakthrough. Proving that it could be child resistant, passing all the regulatory testing, which is the government body. It needs to be 2 parts, but it also needs to run through a regulatory test. Passing that test, that was a big thing.
Nice.
Finding the right manufacturing partner that share the same vision to do it. But probably the most impactful experience recently, we went to Abilities Expo, which is one of the biggest disability community shows in the country. And we set up shop, had our booth, and the response was incredible. Like, you just giving people SnapSlides, and they have some disability, and they're able to open a child resistant closure for like the first time, and the impactful stuff. So it got me on like a mission that, like, this has to happen. I don't want anybody to be struggling to open up a bottle, because it's one of the most commonly cast things you do in a day. Is open something. So.
Now, I would imagine that they're going back to their pharmacy or going back to their doctor to say, hey, I want this type of, I guess, container or closure that they kind of came across at different booths or shows that you're at. I would imagine. I'm not sure how it goes as far as for the consumer, the end user, to be able to kind of recommend that to their doctor or pharmacist, but I would imagine that kind of enough people essentially trying to, talking good about your product and getting it in, I would imagine that helps out.
It helps. Absolutely. And that's what we need. We need to create that, make noise. I need all the help I could get, and I'm on a mission. We need those consumers, because it's a B2B product, so, and these companies are not thinking of the consumer. I don't know why.
Because the consumer is actually using the product.
Yeah. They're not paying for it. The company's paying for it. It's all like, but like, consumers do care. Make it easy for them. They are the end user. There's 12 million people out there that don't have one arm. Help. There's 60 million with arthritis, and then there's the rest of us that we don't like the child resistant closures anyway. We just want them for convenience,
right?
And I get it if it's cost more, but it doesn't, and we could save less plastic too. Removing threads, 5% less plastic by removing threads. So,
that's big right there. So then, I guess on the flip side of things, and it seems like you had your fair amount of challenges through this thing, with people telling you no, whether it's experts or engineers, patent attorneys, so forth and so on. Maybe kind of the license where it seems like they kind of try to sit on things. What would you say was your biggest?
Down all the time.
Right, exactly. What would you say was your biggest challenge, kind of going through the process? Because we all know that this thing is not and it definitely hasn't been just a linear, slowly increase. It's kind of more of a sine wave where it has the kind of peaks and the valleys there. What would you say was your biggest challenge going through this all?
Resistance to change. Is getting stonewalled at a big company level, because we need volume. We need like large retail pharmacies to get behind, and just them not wanting to change. And that's been, getting the patents hard. That was a challenge. The engineering to get it done, challenging. Finding the right forces and friction and all of these technical parameters, hard. Everything was a challenge, but all doable.
Yeah, for sure.
What's the hardest thing is trying to get in the minds of these big companies and change to something that they're not used to. Yep. And I don't know what that resistance to change, but we're going to push it through. We're going to You can't stop progress, and that's why we need, on the consumer side, to make some noise. You know?
Yep. No, for sure. I absolutely agree with you on that. Now, you said that as you kind of took back control of the IP of the patents, that you're kind of you're building this patent estate, I think you called it. Is it any new products on the horizon as relates to maybe kind of similar or similar with the enclosure, or kind of maybe different, but still within that same, industry that you're kind of maybe thinking of or coming up with, or have you been just kind of head down trying to kind of get this across the finish line with manufacturing as you start to ramp up manufacturing?
Yep. So SnapSlide's an interesting thing because it is so simple and it's very versatile, very adaptive. Really put it on anything that opens and closes. My partner and chief operating officer, he coined the phrase. It's like it's a new closure it's a new thing, new element on the periodic table of closures. It's there now. You could form different molecules around it. So, yeah, we have several other iterations for entirely different industries, still packaging, but
I like that. Yeah.
More ways to access it. We're currently launching the RX bottle, but yet we're taking that and streamlining it to try to get it into OTC, adapting technology a little bit to solve over-the-counter drugs and the induction seal aspect of it. That's one thing we need there that prescription bottles don't have. It's funny, when you're doing it, since it is completely new, things that make it hard, because everything needs to be custom. You got to figure out everything different, to apply to your thing.
Yep.
But you can make things better. Even the induction seal aspect of it, nobody likes penetrating those things. So we could adapt a better way to doing it, based on this. And then to household chemicals, to
I like that.
Granular substances. We have a cool one. We just actually got patent protection on what I call the flow gate. I have to show you this thing. It's cool. My buddy's in a wheelchair, and I went over to his house, and I saw him struggling with those big boxes of kitty litter.
Yeah, for sure.
Dude, they're heavy as hell. And he's trying to pour this in his wheelchair into his kitty litter. Right? I'm like, Mike, that's how you do it? Like, that's tough. And yeah, but that's what I have to do. And then I thought, like, SnapSlide. Why don't we let gravity work with you? And I had my engineers work up a prototype. And basically, if you imagine that box, you put the box a little bit above the kitty litter.
Yep.
The SnapSlide's here, right? You open it, and the flow of granular starts flowing out. And then you close it. That perpendicular cutoff just cuts off the flow of gravity. I cut off the flow of the granular substance. I call it the guillotine effect. It just like chops it.
Right.
Made how it works, and you don't have to pick that thing up again. So yeah, I'll send you a video.
No, it sounds pretty cool as I'm visualizing it, but the big thing is, like you said, especially since this thing with the SnapSlide with the RX bottle and kind of in that industry is kind of brand new, just being able to apply that and streamline it to different industries and get it protected. And now, like you said, you're building something that, I guess maybe the natural question that comes to my mind is this something that I guess you're looking to really build a company off of long term, or is it like, hey, we're going to build it up, we're going to keep building it, and but the plan is to maybe sell it at some point. I know sometimes when people want to build like legacy companies, and I know others wants to maybe whether it's a 5-year run, 10-year run, then exit the deal. Is that kind of coming to your guys' I would imagine that you guys have thought about it as far as the long term and the exit strategy with things, if there is one.
Yep, there's a couple different exit strategies. I don't like mapping too far down the road because different factors change different things. All I know is that SnapSlide, my goal is that it's ubiquitous. You can walk down every aisle in the grocery store or whatever, and there's SnapSlide on something. And the perfect real brand within the packages space. For consumer-facing brand for packaging. Yep. And whether it's me running the company, for the long haul, or, if this is going to grow and back people coming in and people that are better than me that know more about the supply chain, let's say. You know, like, I probably will get those people on, and I'll always be here. This is always going to be my thing. But, you know, things happen, and you get the right people for the job and figure out the right exit. If you want to call it an exit,
Right.
half an exit or whatnot, you know, and a merger or something.
Right. No, I like that. Hey, whatever it is, hopefully it's a big check being written as a result of it. That's what I'll say to it. Well, I was going to say, and I maybe told you a little bit beforehand in terms of the reasoning for me doing kind of the podcast as far as trying to get the information out to the masses, to people who maybe don't know a lot about intellectual property, patents, trademarks, whatever the case may be. What advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs who are maybe on that kind of double dutch? You know, they're doing a double dutch where they're like, kind of, do I jump in or not? Do I jump in or not? Because we all have ideas, because we're doing things that are headaches. And man, if we did this that way, just kind of thinking, if we do it this way or that way, this will kind of resolve the problem. So we all have those ideas. Now, whether or not we act on them or not is a different story. So I guess what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs who are kind of really they're going back and forth or playing tug of war with that concept? I know you said earlier to never give up. Is that something that you would say to them, or is it maybe that plus something else?
Never give up's the key. If you have a passion for it, you think you have something, don't let others, you got to listen to smart people. You got to take advice, but it's not gospel. You know, so like that's not, if you're not convinced by the reason, whatever they're saying that's not doable, then you got to find out for yourself. Yeah. Because really nobody knows, you know, and never give up and go with your gut.
I like
it's
that.
A grind. I'm not telling you, it's a grind. You know,
life is a grind.
Life is a grind. You're gonna get the crap beat out of you. You know, you're gonna be kicked down. You know, you gotta get up and brush yourself off many times along the way. But keep going. You'll find the right people. The right people will come and share your vision and be with you. And to slowly build this team around you, and you'll eventually get to it. I will believe that.
And I like that. And man, it's such. I was telling someone recently. I just still think it's such an underrated thing that you all don't get enough credit for as inventors, and society doesn't put give you guys enough praise for, in terms of having something in your head, bringing that to an actual product, but not only just bringing it to an actual product that maybe you can use to kind of provide a solution for your problem, but that other people wants to purchase from you and kind of solve their problems as well. I mean, I just think that's like an amazing, genius thing, and I just think it's for whatever reason, in my opinion, it's kind of underestimated thing that people don't give, like people such as yourself do not get enough credit for. But I guess maybe the last thing as kind of we close out, I'll ask, how can people maybe follow you, follow the company SnapSlide, and kind of see what you guys have going on? It seems like you guys are doing a lot with kind of building out this patent real estate, as you called it, and kind of infiltrating different industries with kind of this concept. How can people follow you on that, whether it's on social medias or if they wanted to purchase the product? Now, I know this is not a B2C thing, but to the extent that you have other businesses or whatnot, how can they kind of get in touch with you guys to kind of maybe talking about a purchase order or just kind of purchasing a product?
You go to our website, snapslide.com. A lot of good information there. Contact us through there. Go to Facebook, SnapSlide at Facebook, like and follow us. No. We're good with getting back to you, either through the website or through Facebook. We'd love to interact with everybody and learn.
And I can attest to that. And Rocky definitely got back to me pretty quickly, so I appreciate that. But I can attest that they definitely get back to you in a timely manner, that's for sure.
For sure, man. Hey, when I get an IP guy that's hitting me up, I'm like, oh, what's this? Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And make noise, join the cause. Because we have a movement established in here, and you need all the voices out there to make some change happen.
Yep. Oh, that's good. And again, hopefully, audience, you guys were taking notes because he dropped a ton of jewels in his thing. I think one of the things that is good for me, at least, as I kind of listen to it all and reaffirms based on just kind of me going about my everyday life, is never give up. I think that's something that we all can take, kind of take and apply to our lives. And really another part of that is kind of, hey, yeah, listen to people, but, take it with a grain of salt, I guess you could say, even if they're experts, because for one reason or another, they may not have the best interest, your best interest in mind when they're kind of telling you what they're telling you for whatever reason. And it still may be a way. I think this is a great story and a journey of that in terms of, hey, people saying it was too simple, experts saying that it was too simple and that he couldn't do it, he couldn't get a mold and all that. And look at him now. He has a ton of patents. He's in the process about to ramp up production. And, hey, man, we'll definitely see him over the next 10 years and say, oh, man, I remember this guy. So, again, hopefully you guys get something out of it. Don't hesitate to reach out, follow what they're doing on the social platforms that he gave out. I'll put those social platforms when the interview comes out in the bottom so that you guys can kind of take a look at them as well and easily access them. And audience, until next time, take care.